Good morning, everybody. Today we're going to be looking at DGP Week 12. The first thing we do on Monday is we look for parts of speech. I like to start by looking for any nouns. Do you see any nouns in this sentence? The first noun I see is the word dog. A dog is a person, a place, a thing, or an idea. In this case, it's a thing. It's a common noun because it's not the name of a dog. If I said my dog, Oakley, then Oakley would be the dog's name and it would be a proper noun. I see one more noun. The word walk. A person, place, thing, or idea. This is an idea. We take a walk. It's a common noun. Now I'm looking for any verbs. Do you see any verbs? I see two verbs. The first verb I see is the word gave. What kind of verb is it? You can give someone something, so it's an action verb. Past, present, or future. Past. I'm not giving someone something now. I gave it to them in the past. The other verb I see is took. Took is also an action verb. It's showing action. You can take something. It's also past tense. Now I'm looking to see if I have any prepositions. Do you see anything that shows relationship to a noun or a pronoun? I see two words that could be prepositions. We'll check them out. I see the word before and I see the word for. To be a preposition, it needs to start with a preposition and end with a noun or pronoun. It will not contain a clause, so it will not have a subject and a verb. Let's look at for a walk. Does it start with a preposition? Well, it might. Does it end with a noun or pronoun? Walk is a noun. This can be a preposition. There's no subject and verb in there. Now let's look at what's left. Before we took it. We know it's not going to contain for a walk because that's a prepositional phrase. But looking at before we took it, we have to see, is it ending with a noun or a pronoun? Well, it actually is a pronoun. What kind of pronoun is it? It's an objective pronoun. An objective pronoun. We found that in our notes. What is we? We is a nominative pronoun. Nominative pronouns usually are subjects of sentences. It's naming somebody rather than saying Alex and I, it's saying we. Nominative pronoun. Well, wait, that can be a subject. Is there a verb? Took, subject plus verb equals a clause. Well, this is a clause, so it's not a prepositional phrase then. So what is before? If you said it's a subordinating conjunction, an SC, then you're exactly correct. Subordinating conjunctions begin adverb-dependent clauses. That means it cannot stand by itself. It would be a fragment if it was alone. That's going to be helpful when we mark our clauses on Wednesday. Now we have a few words left. I see some articles. Articles are a type of adjective, and there are three specific words: a, an, and the. Go ahead and label these articles. A-R-T, A-R-T. Now we're down to three words. Look at this. We forgot another noun. Do you see it? It's the word food. It's a common noun. It's not the specific name of a person's specific dish, though we still wouldn't capitalize things like spaghetti. That's still just a general dish. It's not the name of a specific dish. We have we and its left. Well, what did I tell you about words that can be a subject but that replace a name? You're right. It's a first person nom pro. It could be the subject. Now we have its. It's going to be a possessive pronoun because it's showing ownership. Whose food is it? It's its food. And if you look in your notes, you'll see it's a third person. Now we're done with Monday. As we get ready to look at Tuesday, where we are identifying the sentence parts, we're going to have one idea that we haven't seen in a while. It's our fourth kind of complement, but it's not on our chart. Do you remember what it is? It's our indirect object. Indirect object. To find an indirect object, we use the phrase subject, verb, direct object, to or for what or whom. Subject, verb, direct object, to or for what or whom. We need to use this to find our indirect object in a few minutes. Before we can find our indirect object, we need to find our subjects, our verbs, and see if we have any direct objects. Let's look. We already said we had two nominative pronouns. Nominative pronouns are typically subjects. We have we, that was on Monday, and we have another we. It was also on Monday. Do you guys see your verbs? Let's label them both be. We need to find out if these are transitive or intransitive verbs. To do this, let's look at our complement chart. Here is our complement chart. There are three types of complements that we're looking at today. Keep in mind, there's also an indirect object, but we're not talking about that in our chart. For our DO, direct object, it follows an action verb, and it functions as a noun or a pronoun. To have a predicate nominative, it follows a linking verb, and it functions as a noun or a pronoun. It can also be a predicate adjective, a PA. This also follows a linking verb, but it functions as an adjective. To find a complement, we ask the question, subject, verb, what or who. We gave what or who. We didn't give the dog, we gave food. We have to ask, what kind of verb does it have? What did you say on Monday that gave is? It's an action verb. I have an action verb. It answers subject, verb, what? What is food? It's a direct object. Let's test the other side. We took what? Well, we didn't take walk, we took it. It is renaming the dog in this situation. It's a complement, but we need to see what kind. What kind of verb is took? It's an action verb. Subject, verb, what or who follows an action verb, we have another direct object. If we have direct objects in our sentences, are they transitive or intransitive? Both verbs are transitive. We have one indirect object. Let's use our test. Subject, verb, direct object, to or for what or whom. We gave food to what or whom. We gave it to the dog. Dog is our indirect object. Do we have any prepositions in our sentence on Monday? We have one. We know if we have a preposition, we'll have a prepositional phrase. We start with our preposition, for, and we go till our noun or pronoun, walk. We know it's a prep phrase, prep, PH. We know we have an object of the preposition, the last word, the noun or pronoun at the end of a prep phrase. That's our OP. And now we have to figure out what kind of prep phrase this is. Is it we for a walk? Took for a walk? It's describing took. Took for a walk. If it's modifying the verb, it's an ADV prep phrase. This will help us with our Friday diagram. Now we're down to underlining. We start off by putting our independent clause that stands by itself. We'll give that subject one underline. Let's see, which one can stand by itself? We gave the dog its food. Yeah, that makes sense by itself. Let's underline we one time. This we plus its modifiers will be our complete subject. We know that the verb, the simple predicate, will get underlined 2 times, and we'll leave the rest for now. Now let's see if the other clause is going to make sense by itself. Before we took it for a walk. I don't know what happened before we took it for a walk without having the rest of that sentence. It doesn't stand by itself. Therefore, it's dependent upon something. So all of this is going to get underlined 2 times. To continue our complete predicate, we need to see, is it we the dog its food before or gave the dog its food before? That makes more sense. It's going with our complete predicate rather than our complete subject. Now we're ready to look at Wednesday. Thankfully, we've already thought through a lot of our Wednesday work. We figured out where our clauses are. Do you remember? Each clause needs to have a subject and a verb, and we check and see whether it makes sense by itself. We have 2 pairs of subjects and verbs. Therefore, we have 2 clauses. Let's start our clause at the very beginning. We know this because it's not one of the words that can be alone, such as a noun of direct address. We gave the dog its food before. Well, that could make sense, but we already said that before goes with before we took it for a walk. That makes more sense. So we're going to end our clause right here. We see where it made sense to divide these 2 clauses. And let's just read them one more time and make sure they both make sense. We gave the dog its food. That definitely makes sense. Does it stand by itself? Yes. What kind of clause do we have? It's an independent clause. It doesn't need anything else to make sense. It makes sense on its own. Before we took it for a walk. Well, that doesn't make complete sense. I don't know what happened before we took it for a walk unless I have another clause. This is a dependent clause. The other thing that gives us a clue is the word before. Remember, we said that this was not a preposition in this case because it has a subject and a verb after it. So it's starting an adverb dependent clause. Subordinating conjunctions always start adverb dependent clauses. If I have an independent clause and an adverb dependent clause, what kind of sentence do I have? The sentence type is complex. We found that in our notes. We also know that this is making a statement. What kind of sentence do I have? It's declarative. The purpose of our sentence is declarative. Now we're ready for Thursday punctuation. We know we want to start with our first word being capitalized. We also know, because it's a declarative sentence, that we'll put a period at the very end. Now let's see if there's any commas. We gave the dog its food before we took it for a walk. If I was going to put a comma here, I might put it between the clauses. Let's see if it actually belongs here. Look at rules number 1 and 2. If you look back in your comma rules, you'll see that if you start a sentence with a dependent clause, then it has a comma after it. But if we start with an independent clause, we don't need a comma. By switching the order of those 2 clauses, you either do or do not need a comma. Look at Wednesday. Does it start with an independent or a dependent clause? It begins with an independent clause. Therefore, no comma is necessary. Now we're ready for our diagram. Go ahead and look at Wednesday. How many clauses do we have? You marked 2 clauses, 2 sets of brackets. 1 clause, 1 cross. 2 clauses, 2 crosses. We need 2 crosses. Be sure to give yourself plenty of room to write. On the left-hand side of each of these crosses, we'll put our subjects. In both cases on Tuesday, we labeled our subjects as we. The first one is capital, since it's the first word of the sentence, and the second is lowercase. The next word will be our verb. It goes on the right side of the clause. We, what? We gave. Let's look at the other clause. We, what? We took. Do we have a complement, a direct object, an indirect object, a predicate nominative, or a predicate adjective? We do in both clauses. We have a direct object in both clauses. If you look in your notes, you'll see that we need a straight line that touches the other line. We gave what? We gave food. The direct object goes after this line. We took what? We took it. Our direct object goes after this line. Now we have an indirect object. Let's look at our grammar notes and find out where this belongs. Our indirect object is going to go under the verb. This is who we're giving it to. We're going to put an X on this line to signify that we don't have a preposition. And then we're going to put our indirect object on the straight line where our object of the preposition usually goes. Underneath, we're going to put the modifier. It's an article, the. The is describing the dog. We still have the word its. Whose food is it? Its food. Its goes under food. It's describing the food. Now all I have left is a prepositional phrase and our conjunction. Our subordinating conjunction is going to combine our two verbs. It's an adverb dependent clause, so it will connect at the verbs. We can write before on this line. All we have left is our prepositional phrase. You told me that a prepositional phrase was an adverb prep phrase in this case. It describes the verb, so it'll go under the verb. Preposition goes on the slanted line. OP goes on the straight line. And your describing words go underneath. In this case, it's an article, A. We're all done with today's diagram. You guys did a great job. Thanks.